Good morning, students. Today we are going to begin with the next topic, that is Meditations in Westminster Abbey. This is an essay written by Joseph Addison. I'm H.P. Shrimal, Assistant Professor of English, Government College, Manglana, and let's begin with this essay. To begin with, in the title of this essay, you see three significant words. First is meditations, second is Westminster, and the third important word is Abbey. Dear students, meditation means contemplation or reflection. You contemplate or reflect on something seriously or in a serious mood. Westminster Abbey is a famous ancient church in London on the bank of the Thames River. It was built in the 11th century, and well-known people in London are buried there. Was that right? Let's begin. You see, this is the picture of Westminster Abbey in London. You can see that this is a magnificent building and it was built in the 11th century. Is that right? Next. Dear students, Addison begins by writing, when I am in a serious humor, I very often walk by myself in Westminster Abbey, where the gloominess of the place and the use to which it is applied, with the solemnity of the building and the condition of the people who lie in it, are apt to fill the mind with a kind of melancholy or rather thoughtfulness that is not disagreeable. This is a subjective essay, and the essayist writes or records his own feelings and emotions. What he thinks, what he feels, etc. are recorded in this essay. He says, when I'm in a serious humor. Serious humor means when I'm in a serious mood, I very often walk by myself. By myself. By myself means alone. I very often walk alone in Westminster Abbey, and Westminster Abbey is a churchyard where the dead people are buried. And when you reach there, you find that the overall atmosphere of that place is gloomy. And that's why he says, where the gloominess of the place and the use to which it is applied, the place environment is overall gloomy because dead people are buried there. And when someone reaches there, his mind is filled with sad feelings. He starts reflecting on the nature of life. He thinks, he contemplates on the purpose of life, and ultimately he becomes, gloomy. That's why the essays say, where the gloominess of the place and the use to which it is applied, with the solemnity means seriousness of the building, and the condition of the people who lie in it. The condition of the people who lie in it means when he looks at the people who are buried there, are apt to fill the mind. Apt means appropriate, suitable, to fill the mind with a kind of melancholy or rather thoughtfulness. All these things fill the mind with a feeling that prompts contemplation, that encourages contemplation or thoughtfulness. That is not disagreeable. No one can disagree with this thing. That is to say, everybody agrees that such a place always inspires, motivates, increases contemplation. Is that right? And that's why when the essayist reaches there, his mind is filled with contemplation. He starts thinking, he starts considering, he starts reflecting on the nature of life. Further, he says, I yesterday passed a whole afternoon in the churchyard, the cloisters and the church, amusing myself with the tombstones and inscriptions that I met within those several regions of the reed. Most of them recorded nothing else of the buried person, but that he was born upon one day and died upon another. The whole history of his life being comprehended in those two circumstances that are common to all mankind. I yesterday passed a whole afternoon in the churchyard. Addison further says that yesterday he passed a whole afternoon in the churchyard, walking, strolling, and thinking in the churchyard. The cloisters. What is the cloisters? The cloisters is a covered stone passage. It's a covered stone passage around the four sides of a courtyard. You know, there is a courtyard or churchyard. It has a boundary wall on all four sides, and there is a passage in it which is built of stone. The covered stone passage around the four sides of a courtyard is known as cloisters. He kept on walking in the cloisters, that is to say, covered stone passages around the four sides of the courtyard. The church, even he visited the church, amusing myself with the tombstones. Amusing means entertaining. Entertaining myself with the tombstones. Tombstones, there is a stone on the tomb of a person, and on that tomb some description of the dead person is written. Have you got the point? And that's why the essay says that he kept on reading what is there on the tombstones and inscriptions. Whatever engraved on the tombstone is known as inscriptions that are made within those several regions of the reed. He kept himself busy in reading the inscriptions on the tombstones. Have you got the point? Most of them recorded nothing else of the buried person. But the surprising fact is that when he read the inscriptions there, he found that most of the tombstones have inscriptions that tell us only about two things. The first, when that person was born, and the second, when that person was died. Have you got the point? Only two important pieces of information are written there: birth and death of the person. That's why he says most of them recorded nothing else of the buried person but that he was born upon one day, that is his birthday, and died upon another, that is the day of his death. The whole history of his life being comprehended in these two circumstances. And if you think seriously, consider seriously, reflect on it, you find that the whole history of that person can be understood. Comprehended means understood in those two circumstances, that is birth and death, that are common to all mankind. And it's not uncommon. You all understand it pretty well that birth and death are two things which are common to each and everyone. Is that right? He further said, I could not but look upon these registers of existence, whether of brass or marble, as a kind of satire upon the departed person, who had left no other memorial of them but that they were born and that they died. They put me in mind of several persons mentioned in the battles of heroic poems, who have sounding names given them for no other reason but that they may be killed, and are celebrated for nothing but being knocked on the head. Is that right? See, I could not but look upon these registers of existence. The essay says that he could not help himself, but he kept on looking upon these registers of existence, whether of brass or marble, whether the two inscriptions are in brass or they are in marble. He kept on reading them. And he felt that it was a kind of satire upon the departed persons. Departed means dead persons. And he felt that these inscriptions mentioning only the birth and death are in fact a type of satire upon the dead persons who had left no other memorial of them, because when you read them you find that there was no significant, there was nothing significant in the life of the dead persons except that they were born and that they were died. Have you got the point? Had there been any serious thing, significant thing, that would have been mentioned in the inscription. But there is nothing in the inscription except the birth and the death. It means that the dead person did not do any significant or important things in their life, except that they were born and that they were died. Well, who had left no other memorial of them, because the dead people had left no other memorial except their birth and the death, but that they were born and that they died. They put me in mind of several persons mentioned in the battles of heroic poems, who have sounding names given them. There he saw the inscriptions on the people who died in wars. They fought bravely, isn't that? But even on their tombstones, he found the inscriptions having only two important things: their birth and their death. For no other reason but they may be killed and are celebrated for nothing but being knocked on the head. And even in the inscriptions on those brave warriors, he found that they were born and that they were killed. Have you got the point? And their dates were mentioned there. You further says, this is a quote from Virgil's Aeneid, and the translation is given below. The meaning is that the great heroes of the ancient legends with high sounding names like Glaucus, Medon, and Thersites were finally slain on the battlefield and obliterated from the world. The great warriors like Glaucus, Medon, Thersites, etc., slain means killed, murdered in the battlefield, on the battlefield, and obliterated from the world. Obliterated means forgotten, removed from the world. Is that right? He further says, the life of these men is finally described in Holy Writ by the path of an arrow, which is immediately closed up and lost. About the life of these men, the Bible says, Holy Writ means the Bible, that their life is like, the path of an arrow. What does it mean? The phrase means, the reference here is to the passage in the Bible, which means when an arrow is shot at a target. When you shot an arrow at a target, the air thus divided. This arrow divides the air, but comes together at once. As soon as the arrow passes through the air once again become together, so that no one knows its pathway, and therefore after a while nobody can understand the path of the arrow, or nobody can understand the path of the arrow, because the air divided by the arrow comes together immediately after the passing of the arrow. Is that right? This is what it says. That is, metaphorically speaking, after the death of the brave warriors, nobody can understand, looking at the inscriptions, that they did great things in their lifetime, because there are only two things mentioned in their inscriptions: their birth and their death. As if the battles they won, their great deeds were of no use. Is that right? This is what Joseph Addison thinks, contemplates, considers, reflects in the Westminster Abbey. Is that right? Thank you, students. We shall take up the next topic tomorrow. Till then, thank you.